What's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of JB's Toys and Hobbies. I'm super excited to bring this episode to you. This is one of the coolest episodes I've done on either of my YouTube channels, and I hope you enjoy it, so let's jump right in. We are going to be doing the world's smallest functioning train set inside of a tin can. What I'm doing right now is I'm unloading the existing train kit that come in with this tin can off of Amazon. And as you can see, this is not what we're using. This is way too large. So instead, we're going to be using this train set that I'm about to pull out of this box here. As you can see how small that train track is, I cannot recall the exact scale. I'll try to put it back up on the screen here if I can find the information on it and confirm the scale of this. But this is done by Teeny Trains, and I will put that website in the description as well. As you can see, that little bitty tin box is what the engine and train cars came in, and you can see how small they are. Look at that little engine. Now, as you can tell, these are a magnetic functioning train set, so it's not functioning in the traditional sense, but it will still go around the track and function technically, so that's what we're going with. And here's a good close-up of the trains on the existing track that we are going to highly modify, and we'll get to that later in the episode as well. And you saw me with the dollar bill earlier. This time I'm putting a penny on my fingertip there just to show you the scale of how small this actually is. But as you seen earlier, whenever I put the train track in the tin, there's still a lot of space. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of that leg sand and make a larger outer piece and an inner piece for us to put that diorama, the grass and bushes and rock on top of the leg sand that we will then mount on the track itself. But before we jump into the project, start the modification, I just want to show you the train running and again the scale of everything and how it functions. And then the project is going to begin here shortly. All right, back to talking about that leg sand. That is like some standard, I want to say this is 30 thousandths thick leg sand if I remember correctly. But all I'm going to do is cut out the rectangular rounded shape that is going to be going on the outer portion of the track, and then we're going to cut a inner portion that will go on the inside as well. I already traced the outer, I'm working on tracing the inner, and then I'm going to offset that line. You can see I have a couple extra lines there just to offset it, give that train a little bit extra room to move around those tracks. So that's going to give you an idea what the outer track's going to be like. You know, we took up that room so it'll fit in the tin can more accurately. And now I've got to cut the inner portion of that train out as well. There's going to be plenty of time-lapse and fast-forwarded footage in this video. The amount of hours it took me to put this together was quite larger than this 20-something minute video. But I try to have it detailed enough for you to be able to enjoy the build of this project, but sped it up enough to where, you know, I crammed, I don't even know how many hours worth of project work into a 20-minute video. But I'm going to put the train back on here just so we can see that it does function and get around, and then that the leg sand cutouts that I created does not affect the functionality. All right, now we're going to remove the film on both sides of the leg sand. And since this is going to be just like a clear, smooth leg sand, we're going to have to do a little bit of scuffing to it because we want the sand and the diorama material to, you know, be able to adhere to a surface. So scratching up the surface with this 400 grit sandpaper is going to make the finish become more of a milky finish, as you see here, and that will also allow our glue and adhesion and the diorama material to stick to it a lot better. And what you're seeing here is I'm getting some of my Mod Podge and some sand ready, and we're going to go ahead and start doing the initial layout. The Mod Podge is going to be just pouring some of that into the container you see there. Then I'm going to add the sand and make a mix. And the reason being is I don't want the center portion of this layout to be flat. I want to have a couple slight rolling hills. So you're going to see here, we're going to add the sand, get it mixed up, and then we're going to start applying it to that center cutout for the center portion of the layout. This is actually one of the first dioramas I've done in many years. I think this is only the second, maybe third one I've ever done. But this is probably going to be the most detailed and challenging that I've done, because I've never done anything this small of scale before. So this was a learning experience, and like I said, the amount of hours that went into this project just for a 20-minute video was just crazy ridiculous, but I had a lot of fun doing this. But as you can see there, we kind of got some of the rolling hills that I wanted. I'm going to pull out some rock and some stones to add to that as well, and just kind of pushing those into some of those hills that I created. And then we're going to go back and apply some more Mod Podge glue, and then we're going to sprinkle some sand on the rest of that area, and you'll see that here shortly as well. Just getting it kind of in just different areas that I thought would look good. I was trying to give it a natural terrain look, you know, some of the big rocks, small rocks. Going to get that Mod Podge back in there. We're going to sprinkle that sand on there, like I said, and just give it that, you know, more coverage, more even coverage. And then you're going to see the background we're going to be using here shortly, and then I'm going to end up having to come back and paint, because the color of sand and rock that we're using here is not going to match the background that we decided to go with, and that entire process will be shown. So from here, we pretty much have the center one kind of laid out the way I want it. Again, we are going to modify some colors, do some painting, but I'm going to go ahead and get some more Mod Podge spread on that outer layout section, and we're going to do the same thing. Sprinkle some more sand on it, and as you can see, I'm doing some large rocks and small rocks and just getting them spread out. Going to go back and put a little bit of Mod Podge on top, and then the sand just to help hold all that in. All right, let the glue kind of set, and then I just shook off the excess that you're seeing here, and then everything is in place, and it looks great as it is. But again, we're going to have to add some greenery. We're going to have to add a little bit of color to the sand and rocks to match the background, and you'll understand more of what I mean by that here shortly whenever I actually show the background. But like before, I'm just going to go ahead and set up the centerpiece and outer piece, just kind of let you see what the natural layout looks like before we have to modify with some paint and greenery. So these are the backgrounds I decided to use. This is something that I was going to insert in the lid of the can, so whenever you raise the tin can lid, that will be the background in the back portion. However, I had 3 photos of kind of like, you know, that desert setting, and I wasn't sure which one we were going to go with at first, but I ended up settling at the one on the top that you see right here. I like the colors of that. I love the look of the rolling crowds, and the added greenery would allow me to, you know, accurately portray some additional greenery on the layout itself as well. So what we're going to go ahead and do here, you can already see that I did some test spots with some paint that I mixed, and I did a mixture with some browns, reds, whites, blacks to try to get the color match very close. So this initial one that I'm going to paint on here was very orange heavy, and then I'm going to get all that painted on, and then we're going to come back with a more of a tannish wash that you're going to see here in a moment. And I really watered it down. That's the reason I'm calling it kind of a tan wash. And then we're going to brush that on top of that orangish red sand and layout that we did, just to give it a little bit more cover, and to dampen the brightness a little bit, and to try to get to match that background even more. And in doing so, I ended up some of the wash ended up staining the rocks, but I decided to end up painting the rocks anyway. And we're going to go with like some grays, some dark grays, and some light tan to give it some natural looks. And I'm going to go back and pretty much repaint all the rocks that have been glued on the terrain. And I also add shading, and you'll see some of that here shortly. So the first part I pretty much got done already. I added shading all the way around. I know that's not realistic, but the reason I did that is I was not 100% sure which orientation I was going to place this yet. So I figured if I add shading to both sides, no matter which way I turn it, it will look good, and you won't be able to see the backside once it's all mounted anyway. Now, from the terrain diorama kit that I have, I've got various types of grass, plants, shrubs, greenery, and so on and so forth that we're going to use here. And what you're seeing now is I'm adding some of that grass to the shaker. And then we're going to take that Mod Podge again, and we're going to lay some of that down in various areas that we want the greenery to come through. I do want to point out, I started out just doing like the green grass in the shaker, and I didn't quite get the coverage I wanted, so I ended up going back and adding just a little bit more of the dark green turf as well. So whenever I was shaking it, you'll see that, you can see the grass coming in now, but then I went back and then I added some of that darker green, just base to it to give it a little thicker, a little more color, and it come out a lot better in my opinion. Going to be doing the same thing to the centerpiece. Going to be adding more Mod Podge, and we're going to be shaking some of that green turf and the green grass. Again, a couple different shades of green just to give it some depth and add a little bit of realism. Just kind of Mod Podged it in various areas where I felt like some water would collect whenever it did rain, so some greenery would grow, and really happy with how that turned out too, especially after I repainted the rocks and the terrain just come together a lot better. These are like little tufts of like shrubbery that come in one of those Ziploc bags you've seen earlier. And with these, I'm just going to add a few dots of Mod Podge here and there randomly. I'm going to tear some of those off, add that shrubbery to it. And I'm also going to use those, the little shrubs or grass tuffets, I should say, that was in that clear plastic container you've seen earlier. We're going to place some of those randomly around some of the green areas around the rocks, again in locations where it looks kind of like where water would potentially collect. All right, here's the overall shot. Again, I'm not 100% sure about the orientation we're going to put it in the tin can yet, but we're going to figure that out shortly. I already modified the tin to be receptive of the micro USB connection to power that board up, but we're gonna have to raise that train platform up, but we have to be careful on the height because I want to add a rock mountain that the train is actually going to run through. So I take a small 1x2, cut it up into sections, and we're going to glue, or should I say shoe goo, those feet inside the tin can, and then we're going to glue the center and outer portion of the layout to the train track, and then we're going to mount everything inside the tin can as well. And as you can see, I finally decided on orientation. Going to bring some of that natural greenery on the outer up front, as well as some of the natural green up front on the center section as well. And that's going to allow me a lot more room on that back side to add that little rock mountain that we want the train to drive through. So I got my height figured out. Again, I had to take in consideration that we are adding that mountainscape. So now that we settled on the height, we're going to go ahead and glue those feet in there, as well as the train layout that we just finished, or should I say nearly finished. There's plenty more to come. And just like that, we have the initial layout in place. And you can see it's just shy of an inch deep. I would say it's probably more like 3/4 of an inch deep. And that will allow for us to work on the mountainscape, which we're going to be beginning here shortly. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add that background. I moved the tin can around a few times to get the layout that I wanted. Finally got happy with that, and then we're going to go ahead and attach that into the background, so whenever we open the tin can, the layout that we're building will match and kind of blend in with the layout and give you a very cool little train escape setting. Now right here I'm talking about my placement for the mountainscape, or should I say the mountain tunnel that we're going to build. So I've got some of my craft foam, I've got my foam cutter, I took some measurements. I'm going to go ahead and first cut out basically just a foam rectangle, and this is how we're going to start doing our mountainscape. Going to get my corners rounded and get it cut to length, and now we kind of know how it's going to sit in there. So at this point now I'm going to draw kind of the shape I want. I want it to curve out, then I want it to come back in, and again, because I want the train to actually drive through this. So as you can see here, we have some of it actually going over the railroad itself. And now I'm going to start shaping the top, give it, various height and peaks as you see here. And then we're going to mark our area where the train runs through, and then we're going to actually cut out the cavern or the cave portion that the train is actually going to drive through. I don't think I filmed me actually making the other corner, but on that far right corner with empty space, I ended up making another small piece for it as well. Actually, that's what you see me holding now. And what I'm doing is I'm adding some Mod Podge to that as well. And we're going to sprinkle some more sand on this just to give it that kind of, rocky terrain look. And then, of course, we're going to come back in and do some airbrushing. But we want to get that texture added. And the Mod Podge, kind of just strengthens the styrofoam as well. And it hardens it, I should say. So we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to start the airbrushing process. But right here, as you can see, we have it kind of just sitting in there the way we want it. And I'm going to start mixing my paint. I'm going to water it down, get it to my airbrush thickness that I want. And we're going to start layering these mountainscapes that I made out of the foam. And what I mean by layering is I'm going to come in with a base color, which is kind of that reddish orange that you kind of see in the background picture. And initially it comes out a little bit too light. So I come back in and I'm going to darken it and darken some of the creases and crevices. And then that ended up being a little too dark, so I wanted to wash some of that back out. So I come back in with a little bit more of a lighter orange wash and just kind of sprayed over everything. And you'll see what I'm talking about here as we're going through this process. So here we're darkening things up in a few areas just a little bit, going up a couple shades. And then this is after I added some of the darker shading portions and some of the crevices and cracks. You can see I'm darkening those up just a little bit more. This is where I come back in with the lighter wash. I want to wash some of that back out. I want the shading and the crevices to show, but I want to wash out a little bit. Really happy with how it turned out. And I have them just kind of sitting in place there. It's not a perfect match, but I think it turned out pretty good. And considering it's in the foreground, really happy with it. Really happy with how the shading turned out. And the color match come out pretty good. What I decided to do was I was going to add some more Mod Podge to the sides and back of the inside of the tin can, and we're going to cover that in some greenery. I just didn't want shiny chrome standing out from the inner part of the tin whenever we have it open and the layout's running. So I ended up just putting more of that on there, and then we're going to sprinkle some more greenery again, and it consisted of, basically the green grass and then that darker green, filler. You can see the wetness of the Mod Podge peeking through, but that dries up clear, so you're not even going to see that. But we're going to take that shoe goo and we're going to go ahead and get that mountainscape placed in where we want it, as well as that corner section. Really happy how this thing's turning out. This has been such a fun project and unique. But now that that is mounted in with the shoe goo, there's a little bit of a crevice showing, so I decided to come in with some more Mod Podge and some more shrubs and grass tuffets. And you can see that's what I'm gluing into place again. And again, that little bit of white of glue that's still showing up, don't worry about it. It dries clear. It will not be there. I decided to add a little bit of like a vine overhang. I had some material to do that. So I'm adding a couple tuffets and shrubs to the upper portion of the mountains, as well as some of like the vinery that's going to be hanging down a little bit. This is after everything has had time to pretty much dry, so I'm putting the train in. You can see how the vines are hanging down. You know, you can see the glue clear dry. Everything's looking really nice now. Super, super happy with how this turned out. And we're pretty much at the final reveal, and I'm going to show some video with the train running as well here shortly. And here we are with the final functioning reveal. Again, guys, I had an absolute blast doing this project for all of you. I hope that you enjoyed it. I thought it was unique, it was challenging, it was super fun. And again, between my two YouTube channels, this is one of the coolest projects that I have ever done, in my opinion, of course. But I love how it turned out. The family got a kick out of it. Some of my friends that was following the build and asking me questions about it thought it was really cool. I'm super happy with how it turned out. I hope you enjoyed this build. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm kind of hoping to use the world's smallest theme in some other areas of the channel. But I need feedback from you guys. If you enjoyed this build, please put a like on the video. Leave a comment. There's some other world's smallest dioramas I have some ideas with. But I want to make sure that I'm also giving you content that you enjoy, while it's also something that I enjoy doing for you. But as always, guys, I greatly appreciate each and every single one of you for jumping in, joining, checking this video out. Again, it's for all of you. I hope you enjoy it. Please consider hitting liking and subscribing. I'm trying to get to that first huge and difficult milestone of 1,000 subscribers, and I cannot do that without your help and support. But again, thank you to each and every one of you. Hope you enjoyed working on the next project, and we'll see you on the next episode.